Power is not about who sits on the throne. It is about who holds the keys to the castle. And the most dangerous thing a king can do is mistreat the queen. Evan Carter thought he was clever. By forcing Adeline into an open marriage, he thought he could keep her as a trophy wife while living like a bachelor. He drafted the clauses perfectly. He locked down her assets. He froze her accounts. But he forgot one ancient bylaw in the Carter family trust. If a husband violates his vows by contract, his marital rights can be transferred to the next of kin. Evan just handed his wife to the deadliest billionaire in the city. In the next few minutes, you are going to witness the most humiliating reversal of power in romance history. Adeline isn't just getting a new lover. She's getting a weapon. Are you ready to see Evan Carter beg? Before we begin, if you love billionaire angst and stories where powerful men finally get what they deserve, tap subscribe and join us. And tell me in the comments, where are you watching from right now? I love seeing how far these stories travel. Chapter 1: The Contract. The fertility clinic smelled like antiseptic and broken dreams. Adeline Carter sat in the examination room, staring at the ultrasound screen that had just delivered the worst news of her life. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Carter," the doctor said, her voice gentle but clinical. "Your hormone levels are extremely irregular. Your chances of conceiving naturally are less than 5%. We can explore other options, but I want you to understand the reality." "Thank you," Adeline whispered. She didn't hear the rest. She walked out of that clinic feeling hollow, like someone had reached inside her chest and carved out the future she'd been holding on to for 5 years. 5 years of marriage to Evan Carter. 5 years of waiting for him to look at her the way he looked at his phone, at his deals, at his empire. She drove home in silence, tears streaming down her face that she didn't bother to wipe away. The penthouse was empty when she arrived. Of course it was. Evan was always somewhere else, always working, always building, always gone. She poured herself a glass of water with trembling hands and stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. The lights below sparkled like promises nobody kept. Her phone buzzed, a text from Evan. "Be home at 8, we need to talk." Not, "How did the appointment go?" Not, "Are you okay?" Just a summons. She stared at that message for a long time. Then she heard the door open. It was only 6:30. Evan walked in early. Tall, sharp suit, perfect hair. The kind of handsome that photographs well, but feels cold in person. He didn't kiss her. He didn't ask about the appointment. He set his briefcase down and pulled out a folder. "Sit down," he said. Not a request, a command. Adeline's stomach twisted. "I just came from the clinic." "I know." Her heart stuttered. "You know?" "I got the report sent to me directly." His voice was flat, businesslike, which is why this conversation is happening now. He slid a stack of papers across the marble counter. Adeline stared at them. "What is this?" "An amendment to our marriage contract." Her hands shook as she picked up the papers. The words blurred at first. Then they came into focus. "Open marriage agreement. Terms and conditions. Both parties may pursue romantic and physical relationships outside the marriage without disclosure requirements. Mrs. Carter is expressly prohibited from forming emotional attachments with partners of significant wealth, social standing, or competitive business interests. Mrs. Carter will maintain her public role as Mrs. Evan Carter at all official events, functions, and family obligations. Any pregnancy must be approved in writing by Mr. Evan Carter before proceeding. Unauthorized pregnancy will result in immediate dissolution of financial support. Mrs. Carter acknowledges that Mr. Evan Carter's extramarital relationships will not constitute grounds for divorce or asset redistribution. The paper slipped from her fingers. You're joking. Evan loosened his tie. I'm not. You want an open marriage. I want freedom, he corrected. And I'm willing to extend the same to you. Within reasonable parameters. Adeline's voice cracked. I just found out I might never have children, Evan, and you're handing me rules for sleeping with other people? This isn't about the clinic. Then what is it about? He looked at her then, really looked at her, and there was nothing in his eyes. Nothing warm. Nothing human. I don't love you the way you need me to, he said simply. I never have, and pretending has become exhausting. But I respect what we've built. This arrangement lets us both move forward without the mess of divorce. You keep the lifestyle, the name, the status, and I keep my freedom. She felt something inside her die. Not quickly, slowly, like watching a star collapse. So, that's it? She whispered. 5 years of marriage and you just don't want me? I didn't say I don't want you. I said I don't love you the way you want to be loved. There's a difference. Is there? Yes. His voice was cold, clinical. Love is a transaction, Adeline. I give you security. You give me legitimacy. We've both benefited, but you've started wanting more, and I can't give you more. Her chest ached. So you'd rather watch me suffer? I'd rather be honest. Honest? She laughed, and it sounded broken. You think this is honest? Sign the papers, Adeline, or don't. But I'm moving forward either way. He picked up his briefcase. I have dinner with the board. I'll be back late. He walked toward the bedroom, and she stood there, holding a contract that proved she'd married a man who saw her as an asset. Not a person, not a wife, not even a human being. An asset. She didn't cry. She just stood there, staring at the city lights, wondering how she'd become so invisible to the one person who was supposed to see her. And then she heard a voice behind her. He always was a fool. Adeline spun around. A man stood in the shadows near the door, tall, older than Evan by at least 10 years. Silver streaked through his dark hair like lightning. Sharp jaw. Cold, calculating eyes that seemed to see everything, including her. But unlike Evan's emptiness, there was something in this man's gaze. Heat. Dominic Carter, Evan's uncle, the ghost of the Carter family. What are you doing here? Adeline breathed. Dominic stepped into the light, holding the contract Evan had left on the counter. Reading the biggest mistake my nephew has ever made, he said quietly. And the way he looked at her, like she was the only thing in the room worth noticing, made her heart stop. Not from fear, from something else entirely. Chapter 2: The Ghost. Adeline's pulse hammered in her throat. Dominic Carter wasn't supposed to be here. Nobody saw Dominic unless he wanted to be seen. He was the legend the family whispered about, the ruthless billionaire who disappeared from public life 10 years ago after a scandal so brutal it nearly destroyed the Carter empire. Some said he'd gone into hiding. Others said he'd been exiled. But everyone agreed on one thing. Dominic Carter was dangerous. You shouldn't be here, Adeline said, her voice barely steady. Dominic set the contract down carefully. Neither should this. Evan is an idiot. His voice was calm, too calm, like a predator deciding whether to strike. He always has been. But this, he tapped the papers, this is beyond stupidity. This is cruelty dressed up as honesty. Adeline's throat tightened. It's not your business. It became my business the moment he violated the Carter family trust. She frowned. What are you talking about? Dominic moved closer. Not threatening, just present, like gravity pulling her toward him. The Carter Trust was established in 1847, he said quietly. It was designed for an era when marriages were political alliances and business contracts. It has rules, very specific, very enforceable rules. He paused. One of them states that if a husband breaks his marital vows through documented contract or willful abandonment, his marital rights and responsibilities can be transferred to the next eligible male heir. Adeline's heart stopped. That's archaic. It's legal. His eyes held hers. I spent 2 weeks pulling precedents and buying silence from 3 different law firms to confirm it. This clause was designed for royal divorces and corporate heirs. It hasn't been used in over a century, but the courts still enforce it. She shook her head. I don't understand. Evan just signed away his claim to you. Dominic's voice was soft, deadly. The moment he forced you to sign that agreement, he broke the terms of your original marriage contract, which means, legally, you're no longer bound to him. But you're bound to me. The heir left the room. Adeline stared at him. That's insane. That's the law. I'm not asking you to want anything, Dominic interrupted gently. I'm telling you what's already happened. Evan made a choice, and that choice has consequences he didn't anticipate. Adeline's hands trembled. Why are you here? Why now? Dominic's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes, something dark, something hungry. Because I've been watching. Watching? For 5 years, I've watched my nephew treat you like a decoration, like something he purchased and put on a shelf, like something beautiful he owned but never actually wanted. His voice dropped. And I've done nothing because it wasn't my place, because you were his wife, because interfering would have been wrong. And now he's opened the door. Dominic's jaw tightened. And I'm not a good enough man to leave it closed. Adeline's chest ached. You can't just... I already have. He pulled a document from his jacket. This is the transfer notice. It was filed this afternoon with the family attorney and the trust administrator. Evan doesn't know yet, but he will tomorrow morning. Adeline's mind spun. This is insane. You can't just claim someone. I'm not claiming you. Dominic's voice softened in a way that made her shiver. I'm giving you a choice Evan never did. What choice? Freedom. The word hung in the air like smoke. Adeline's chest ached. I don't understand. You will. Dominic stepped back, but his eyes never left hers. When Evan comes home tomorrow, he'll find a letter from the family attorney. He'll learn that his marriage to you is legally void, that his control over your assets is terminated, that the trust has transferred your legal guardianship to me, pending your consent. He paused. Everything he thought he owned, he just lost. And what do you want from me? Adeline whispered. Dominic looked at her for a long moment, and she saw something in his face that made her breath catch. Regret, longing, rage. I want you to stop being afraid, he said quietly. I want you to remember what it feels like to be wanted, not needed, not used, but wanted. I want Evan to understand what he threw away. His voice dropped. And I want you to choose. Actually choose, for the first time in 5 years. Choose what? Whether to stay with me, or walk away from all of this, from me, from Evan, from the family, with enough money to disappear and never look back. Adeline's throat tightened. You'd let me go? Yes. Why? Because you deserve the choice. The sincerity in his voice broke something inside her. What do you want from me? She asked again. Really? Dominic's jaw tightened, and when he spoke, his voice was raw. I want what I've wanted since the day Evan brought you home. He took a breath. I've wanted you every single day of your marriage. I've wanted you every time he ignored you at dinner. Every time he canceled on you. Every time I saw you standing alone at family events, smiling like nothing was wrong while dying inside. His eyes burned. And I've hated myself for wanting my nephew's wife. Adeline couldn't breathe. So no, he continued. This isn't kindness. This isn't nobility. This is me being selfish enough to take what I should have fought for 5 years ago, when Evan brought you to that first family dinner, and I realized he didn't deserve you. The confession hung between them like lightning. Adeline's voice shook. You've wanted me this whole time? Every single day. Why didn't you say anything? Because you were his. Dominic's voice was rough with restraint. And I don't take what belongs to someone else, even when they don't deserve it. And now you're not his. He stepped closer. But I won't touch you until you choose me, really choose me. Not because you're hurt, not because you're angry, but because you want me the way I've wanted you. Adeline stared at him. This man who'd been a ghost, this man who'd been watching, this man who was giving her the one thing Evan never had, a choice. I don't know what to say, she whispered. Dominic's expression softened. Then don't say anything. Not yet. But think about this. He leaned in, close enough that she could feel his warmth. When Evan comes home tomorrow and realizes what he's lost, where do you want to be? I don't know. That's okay. His voice was gentle now. You have time. But Adeline, yes, you're not alone anymore. And then he was gone, like smoke, like a ghost, but he left something behind. The feeling that maybe, just maybe, she wasn't as invisible as she'd thought. Chapter 3. The Reckoning. Evan didn't come home that night. Adeline lay awake in the dark, staring at the ceiling, replaying everything Dominic had said. Everything he'd looked at her like. Everything she'd felt when he stood close enough to touch, but didn't. By the time morning came, she was exhausted, but also awake. Really awake. For the first time in 5 years. At 9:47 a.m., her phone rang. The family attorney. Adeline answered with shaking hands. Mrs. Carter. The lawyer said carefully, I need to inform you of a significant change in your legal status. I already know, Adeline said quietly. Then you understand that as of yesterday at 4:32 p.m., your marriage to Evan Carter has been legally dissolved under Clause 47 of the Carter Family Trust. The dissolution is retroactive to the moment he presented the open marriage agreement. And my assets? Fully restored to your name, including the settlement you signed away in your prenuptial agreement. A pause. $50 million has been transferred to an account in your name, effective immediately. Adeline closed her eyes. $50 million. She'd signed away her family's money when she married Evan because she'd loved him, because she'd believed he loved her. Additionally, the lawyer continued, your new legal guardian under the trust is Dominic Carter. All marital rights previously held by Evan have been transferred to him pending your formal consent. My consent? You have the right to refuse the transfer, but if you accept, Dominic Carter becomes your legal husband under the trust, not in name, but in authority and responsibility. He assumes all protective duties, financial oversight, and FAMU standing. Adeline's voice was barely a whisper. And if I refuse? A long pause. Then you forfeit access to the trust entirely, and Evan's rights are reinstated by default. It wasn't a choice. It was a cage with 2 different doors. I need time, Adeline said. You have 24 hours. After that, the default reversion takes effect. The call ended. Adeline sat in the massive penthouse that suddenly felt like a mausoleum. And then her phone rang again. Evan. She stared at the screen, then answered, "Where are you?" His voice was tight, strained. Nothing like the cold businessman from last night. "Home. I'm coming there. Now. We need to talk." "About what?" "About the insane letter I just got from our attorney." His voice cracked. "About my uncle losing his mind. About you giving me away?" Adeline's voice was calm, deadly calm. Silence. "I didn't give you away." "Yes, you did." She stood and walked to the window. "You handed me a contract that violated our marriage agreement. You broke the terms of the trust. And now you're dealing with the consequences." "This is a legal loophole," Evan snapped. "Some ancient nonsense nobody's used in 100 years. And yet it's binding." "Adeline, what do you want, Evan?" The question seemed to stun him. I want to fix this." "There's nothing to fix." "Yes, there is." His voice was desperate now. "I made a mistake. I shouldn't have given you that contract. I shouldn't have. You shouldn't have spent 5 years making me feel invisible. You shouldn't have asked for an open marriage the same day I found out I might never have children." "I know." His voice broke. "I know, and I'm sorry." "Are you?" "Yes." "Then answer me this." Adeline's hands tightened on the phone. "Did you know about my fertility issues before yesterday?" Silence. Long, terrible silence. "Evan, did you know?" I got the preliminary results last week." The world tilted. "You knew," she whispered. "You knew, and you waited until I got the worst news of my life to hand me that contract." You thought what? That I'd be too devastated to fight back? I thought you'd understand that we don't need children to what? To maintain the image of a marriage you never wanted." More silence. And Adeline realized something. He'd known. He'd waited. He'd weaponized her pain. "We're done," she said quietly. "Adeline, I'll call you when I decide what happens next." She hung up and stood there, staring at the city below, feeling something she hadn't felt in 5 years. Rage. Clean, burning rage. That evening, Dominic returned. He didn't knock. He simply appeared in her living room at sunset. "You're deciding," he said. It wasn't a question. Adeline turned to face him. "How long have you known about Evan's cruelty?" 5 years. "And you did nothing?" "I did what I could without overstepping." Dominic's voice was rough. "I made sure you had friends in the family. I blocked his attempts to isolate you completely. I made sure you kept your own money separate from his wherever possible." "That was you?" "Yes." "Why?" "Because someone needed to protect you." His eyes burned, and he wasn't going to. Adeline stared at him. "You've been watching me for 5 years?" "Yes." "That's obsessive?" Dominic's mouth curved bitterly. "I know. Believe me, I know. But I couldn't stop. Every time I tried to walk away, I'd see you at another family event. Alone, smiling, pretending. And I'd hate Evan a little more. You don't even know me. Don't I?" He moved closer. "You take your coffee black with 1 sugar. You read mystery novels on Sunday mornings. You cry during cooking shows because the contestants remind you of your mother. You play piano when you think no one's listening. Chopin mostly, because it's sad and beautiful, and you understand sad, beautiful things." His voice dropped. "I know you, Adeline. I've been watching you be lonely for 5 years. And I will not apologize for wanting to fix that." Tears burned in her eyes. I can't just what? Want you? Too late. Care about you? Already done. Destroy my nephew for hurting you? His eyes flashed. I'm just getting started. Adeline's breath caught. What are you going to do? That depends on you. Dominic stopped inches from her. Close enough to touch. But he didn't. If you want to walk away from all of this, from me, from Evan, from the family, I'll make sure you're protected. 50 million and complete freedom. But Evan will come for you eventually. He won't let you go easily. And if I stay, then you stay with me. His voice was raw. Not as my obligation, not as revenge against Evan, but because you choose me. And I will spend every day proving I'm worth that choice. You're asking me to trust you. I'm asking you to trust yourself. Dominic's eyes held hers. To choose what you want, not what's safe, not what's expected, what you actually want. Adeline stared at this man. This dangerous, obsessive, protective man who'd been a ghost for 5 years, who'd watched her suffer, who'd waited. What happens if I say yes? She whispered. Dominic's expression darkened with something that looked like relief and hunger combined. Then Evan learns what it feels like to lose something he thought he owned. And you learn what it feels like to be worshipped instead of tolerated. The promise in his voice made her shiver. I don't know if I can do this, she whispered. Do what? Be wanted this much. It's terrifying. Good. Dominic's voice was gentle now. You should be terrified. Because I won't let you go once you're mine. I won't ignore you. I won't abandon you. I won't let you feel invisible ever again. He paused. And that kind of attention, that kind of obsession, is dangerous. Are you trying to scare me away? I'm trying to be honest. His jaw tightened. I'm not a good man, Adeline. I'm selfish. Possessive. I've spent 10 years in exile because I destroyed someone who threatened what I love. And if you choose me, I will destroy anyone who hurts you, including Evan. The confession should have terrified her, but it didn't. It made her feel powerful. I accept, she said quietly. Dominic's eyes flashed. You're sure? No. She smiled, and it was the first real smile she'd worn in years. But I'm choosing anyway. Something broke in his expression, and then he kissed her. Not gently, not carefully, like a man who'd been starving for 5 years and finally got permission to feast. Adeline kissed him back with everything she had. All the loneliness, all the rage, all the years of being invisible. And when they finally broke apart, both breathless, Dominic rested his forehead against hers. You're mine now, he whispered. Yes. And I'm yours. Yes. Then let's destroy him together. And Adeline smiled. Because revenge had never tasted so sweet. Chapter 4. The Secret. 3 weeks later, Adeline's world shifted again. She started feeling sick. At first, she thought it was stress. The legal battles with Evan were brutal. He was fighting the trust transfer with every lawyer he could afford. But the nausea didn't stop. And when she missed her period, Dominic insisted she see a doctor. It's probably just stress, Adeline said. Humor me, Dominic replied, his voice tight with concern. So, she went. Alone, because she didn't want to worry him over nothing. When the doctor came back with the test results, Adeline's world tilted. You're pregnant, the doctor said gently. About 6 weeks along. Adeline stared at her. That's impossible. I assure you it's not. Congratulations. But I was told, her voice broke. I was told my chances were less than 5%. Sometimes, the doctor said kindly, our bodies surprise us. Stress can affect fertility, and when that stress is removed, She smiled. Miracles happen. Adeline sat in the examination room, staring at the ultrasound image. A tiny cluster of cells. A life. Her life. She drove home in a daze. Dominic was waiting in the brownstone he'd moved her into, away from the penthouse, away from Evan's reach. He took one look at her face and crossed the room. What happened? His voice was urgent. Are you sick? Do I need to call? I'm pregnant, Adeline whispered. Dominic went completely still. You're? Yes. He pulled back to look at her, his eyes searching her face. How? The doctor said sometimes when stress decreases, the body… She laughed, and it sounded slightly hysterical. She called it a miracle. Dominic's expression was unreadable. How do you feel? Terrified. Of what? Of Evan finding out. Her voice shook. Of him trying to take this from me too. Dominic's jaw tightened. He won't. You can't promise that. Watch me. He cupped her face. This child is yours, not his. And I will burn the world down before I let him anywhere near either of you. Adeline's eyes filled with tears. What if he claims it's his? Then we prove it's not. How? Dominic's expression went dark, dangerous. Because I'm about to show you what Evan really did to you. He pulled out a file that night. Adeline stared at the folder like it was a bomb. What is this? She whispered. Evidence. Dominic's voice was tight. I suspected when the clinic's numbers didn't match your symptoms. I spent 2 weeks pulling records and buying silence from people who knew the truth. The truth about what? He opened the folder. Inside were medical records. Her medical records. From 3 years ago. What am I looking at? Adeline asked, her voice shaking. Dominic pulled out a document. This. Payment authorization. Dr. Richard Hollis. Services rendered. Medication adjustment. Fertility suppression protocol. Patient. Adeline Carter. Authorized and paid by Evan Carter. Date. March 15th, 2022. The paper slipped from her hands. No, she whispered. Yes. He paid a doctor to suppress your fertility, to make sure you couldn't get pregnant. Dominic's voice was deadly calm. 3 years ago, right after you started talking about starting a family. Adeline couldn't breathe. 3 years. 3 years of trying. 3 years of doctors telling her something was wrong with her hormones. 3 years of thinking her body was broken. While Evan knew. While he watched her cry. While he held her and told her it would be okay. Why? The word came out broken. Dominic's voice was rough. I tracked down the doctor. Paid him enough to tell the truth. Evan told him. He paused. He told him that if you had a child, you wouldn't need him anymore. That you'd love the baby more than him. That he needed to be the center of your world, and a child would ruin that. Adeline's hands shook. He sabotaged me, she whispered. For 3 years, he sabotaged me. Because he was jealous of a child that didn't even exist. Yes. And he let me think I was broken. Yes. Rage flooded through her. Pure, burning rage. How did I get pregnant now? She asked quietly, dangerously. Because you stopped taking the medication he convinced you was for hormone regulation. Dominic's eyes met hers. The prescription ran out 6 months ago. You didn't renew it. And your body healed. Adeline stared at him. I've been off that medication since before I met you. I know. So this baby is yours. Dominic's voice was fierce, and the universe's way of proving Evan didn't win. Adeline's hand moved to her stomach. A baby. Despite everything Evan had done, despite 3 years of sabotage, she was going to be a mother. When Evan finds out, she said quietly, he's going to claim this child is his. Then we show him this. Dominic tapped the medical records. We show him that he destroyed any chance of being this child's father the moment he sabotaged you. We show him that this baby exists because you healed from what he did. It'll destroy him. Good. Dominic's voice was cold. He deserves to be destroyed. Adeline looked at him. You really want this baby? I want you. His voice softened. And if you want this baby, then I want it too. Not because it's revenge, but because it's yours. Even though it's not yours, it will be mine. Dominic's eyes held hers. If you let me be its father, if you let me be the man who shows up, who stays, who loves you both the way Evan never could. Tears spilled down her face. I'm terrified, she whispered. So am I. He pulled her into his arms. But we'll be terrified together. And for the first time in 5 years, Adeline felt safe. Chapter 5. The Fallout. Evan found out 2 months later. Someone leaked it to the press. Adeline Carter, expecting first child. Father's identity, sparks Carter family war. The headline was everywhere by noon. Evan called 60 seconds after the story broke. Adeline stared at her phone, then answered. You're pregnant. No bleeding, no pretense, just rage. Yes. Is it his? That's none of your business. The hell it isn't. Evan's voice was razor sharp. You're still my wife. No, I'm not. I haven't been for 3 months. Legally, the transfer isn't finalized. Legally, you signed away your rights when you handed me that contract. Her voice was ice. Remember? Silence. Then, that child could be mine. It's not. You don't know that. Yes, I do. Adeline's voice was deadly calm. Because I know exactly when I conceived. And it was long after you stopped touching me. More silence. I'm coming to see you, Evan said finally. No. Adeline, you lost the right to make demands 3 months ago, Evan. When you sabotaged my fertility treatment. When you lied to me for 3 years. When you let me believe I was broken while you knew the truth. The silence that followed was deafening. You know, he whispered. I know everything. Adeline. Dr. Richard Hollis was very helpful once Dominic paid him enough. Her voice was shaking now. Not from fear, from rage. 3 years, Evan. You poisoned me for 3 years because you were jealous of a child that didn't even exist. I didn't poison you. You suppressed my fertility because you needed to be the center of my world. Adeline's voice cracked, and you let me cry myself to sleep, thinking something was wrong with me. You held me while I grieved. You comforted me while you knew. I made a mistake. You made a choice. Her voice went quiet, dangerous, and that choice cost you everything. I want to see you. No. Please. You don't get to say please to me. Adeline's hands trembled. You don't get to beg. You don't get to fix this. You destroyed us 3 years ago. I just didn't know it yet. That child could still be mine. This child exists because I healed from what you did to me. Her voice was steel now. This baby is mine. Not yours, not Dominic's. Mine. And you will never touch it. Adeline, if you come near me, Dominic will destroy you. If you come near this baby, I will destroy you myself. Do you understand? Silence. Long, terrible silence. Then, I love you. The words should have meant something, but they didn't. No, you don't. Adeline's voice was soft, final. You love control, and I'm done being controlled. She hung up and stood there shaking, while Dominic appeared from the other room. You heard? She asked. Every word. He crossed to her. You were incredible. I was angry. You were powerful. He pulled her into his arms, and he finally understands what he lost. Adeline leaned into him. He's going to fight. Let him. Dominic's voice was dark. I have evidence he sabotaged you. I have proof he violated the marriage contract. And I have lawyers who will bury him in litigation until he begs for mercy. He'll claim the baby is his. Then we'll prove it's not. Dominic's hand moved to her stomach. DNA doesn't lie, and neither does timeline. He stopped sleeping with you 8 months ago. This baby is 6 weeks along. The math doesn't work in his favor. Adeline closed her eyes. Why is he doing this? Because he finally realized what you're worth. Dominic's voice was rough, and he can't stand that someone else figured it out first. She looked up at him. Do you really want this baby? I want you. He cupped her face. And everything that comes with you. This baby. Your pain. Your healing. Your future. His eyes burned. I want all of it. Even though it's not yours, it will be mine if you let it be. His voice dropped. I'll be at every appointment, every midnight craving, every moment of fear. I'll be the one who shows up. And when this baby is born, I'll be the one holding your hand. Tears spilled down her face. I don't deserve you. You deserve everything I couldn't give you for 5 years. Dominic kissed her forehead. And I plan to spend the rest of my life making up for lost time. And Adeline believed him. Chapter 6. The Grovel. 4 months into her pregnancy, Evan showed up at the brownstone. Adeline opened the door to find him standing on her stoop. He looked destroyed, hollow, thin, dark circles under his eyes. His normally perfect suit was wrinkled. His hair was a mess. What are you doing here? Adeline asked quietly. I needed to see you. Why? Because I can't do this anymore. His voice cracked. I can't live knowing I destroyed the best thing that ever happened to me. Adeline leaned against the doorframe. You didn't destroy me, Evan. You tried to control me. There's a difference. I was wrong. Yes, you were. Please. His voice broke completely. Please let me see her. No. I'm begging you. The answer is no. Adeline's voice was firm. You don't get to be part of this. She's not yours. The words were final. Dominic is her father, not you. Evan's face crumpled. You don't know that. Yes, I do. She pulled out her phone and showed him a document. DNA test, done 2 weeks ago. You're not the father. He stared at the screen, and she watched him break. That's not possible. It is when you stopped touching me 8 months before I conceived. Her voice was cold. You remember, don't you? You were too busy with your freedom. Evan's hands shook. I want my family back. You don't have a family. Adeline's voice was steel. You never did. Because you were too afraid to build one. I'll change. It's too late. Please, Adeline. He was crying now, actually crying. I'll do anything. There's nothing left to do. I love you. No, you don't. She looked at him with something that might have been pity once, but wasn't anymore. You love the idea of me, the trophy, the image, but you never loved me, because if you had, you wouldn't have poisoned me for 3 years. I didn't poison you. You suppressed my fertility because you were jealous of a child. Her voice was quiet, deadly. That's not love. That's ownership. Evan stared at her. What can I do? Nothing. Adeline's hand moved to her stomach, protectively. You destroyed us the moment you chose control over partnership. And now you get to live with that choice. I can't. You can. And you will. She started to close the door. Goodbye, Evan. Wait. But she didn't wait. She closed the door and didn't look back. Inside, Dominic was waiting. He's gone? Dominic asked quietly. Yes, how do you feel? Free. And she meant it. Dominic crossed to her and pulled her into his arms. I'm proud of you. For what? For choosing yourself. Adeline leaned into him. I chose you too. I know. He kissed the top of her head. And I will spend every day earning that choice. She looked up at him. Do you think he'll stop? Eventually. Dominic's voice was grim. When he finally accepts that you're mine, that the baby is mine, that he lost. And if he doesn't, then I'll make him. The promise in his voice should have scared her, but it didn't. It made her feel protected. I love you, she whispered. Dominic's arms tightened around her. I've loved you since the moment I met you, and I will love you until the day I die. Even with all this mess? Especially with all this mess. He smiled. You're worth fighting for. And Adeline finally believed it. Chapter 7. The Birth. 7 months later, Adeline went into labor. It was 2:47 a.m. She woke Dominic with a quiet, "It's time." He was out of bed in seconds, calm, focused, perfect. He drove her to the hospital, holding her hand through every contraction. "You're doing amazing," he kept saying. "I'm terrified," she gasped. "I know," he kissed her knuckles. "But you're the strongest person I've ever met. And you're going to be an incredible mother." The delivery was brutal. 18 hours of labor. Dominic never left her side. Not once. He held her hand, wiped her forehead, whispered encouragement when she wanted to give up. And when the doctor finally said, "One more push," Adeline pushed with everything she had. And then she heard it. A cry. Loud, angry, alive. "It's a girl," the doctor said gently. Tears poured down Adeline's face as they placed the baby on her chest. Tiny, perfect, hers. "She's beautiful," Dominic whispered, his voice wrecked. "She is." Adeline looked up at him. "Do you want to hold her?" Dominic's expression cracked, and for the first time since she'd met him, she saw him cry. He took the baby with trembling hands, like she was made of glass. And Adeline watched the most dangerous man she knew become the gentlest. "What's her name?" Dominic asked quietly. Adeline smiled through her tears. "Hope." "Hope," he repeated softly. "Perfect. Because that's what she was. Hope for a future Evan tried to destroy. Hope for a life Adeline had thought was impossible. Hope. 3 days later, they brought Hope home to the brownstone. It was filled with flowers, gifts from friends, from family, from people who loved them. But there was one gift that made Adeline pause. A white envelope on the doorstep. No return address. She picked it up carefully. Inside was a card. "Congratulations on your daughter. She's lucky to have you. E." Adeline stared at it for a long moment, and walked inside and threw it away. Because Evan didn't get to be part of this. He'd made his choice, and she'd made hers. Epilogue. The Throne. 1 year later, Adeline and Dominic married. Not for the trust, not for the money, not for revenge, but because they loved each other. The wedding was small, just family and close friends. Hope was the flower girl, toddling down the aisle in a tiny white dress. And when Dominic kissed Adeline at the altar, she felt 5 years of pain finally release. She was free, truly free, and loved in a way she'd never imagined possible. Miles away, Evan Carter sat alone in his office. Empty desk, empty life, empty future. He'd lost everything. His wife, his uncle's respect, his standing in the family, his chance at being a father. All because he'd been too afraid to love someone more than he loved control. The wedding announcement sat on his desk. A photo of them. Adeline, Dominic, Hope. A family. The family he'd destroyed before it could begin. He picked up his phone, stared at Adeline's number, and then deleted it, because there was nothing left to say. He'd had his chance, and he'd thrown it away. Now all he could do was watch from a distance as the woman he'd taken for granted built a life with the man who'd always seen her worth. Evan set down his phone and finally understood what Dominic had known all along. Power isn't about who sits on the throne. It's about who holds the keys to the castle. And he'd handed those keys to the one person who knew exactly what to do with them. Dominic Carter hadn't just taken his wife. He'd taken his entire future. And Evan had no one to blame but himself. The realization didn't bring peace. It brought something worse. Regret. Deep, permanent, soul-destroying regret. The kind that follows you for the rest of your life. The kind that whispers in the dark. You had everything, and you threw it all away. Evan closed his eyes, and for the first time in his life, he understood what he'd lost. Not a wife, not a child. Not even his pride. He'd lost the only woman who'd ever truly loved him. And there was no getting her back. The end. If this story made you feel something, anger, satisfaction, relief, or revenge, let me know by hitting like. And if you want more stories where billionaires lose everything for underestimating the woman they hurt, you know where to find me. I'll see you in the next one.